Guess what time it is? Guess what time it is? It is Friday at 6 p.m. And that means a special edition of Your Voice of Reason in a world that is beyond reason, of your favorite show on the radio, Orlando Smart Talk Radio, Beyond Reason Radio. And I am your host, Michael Yaffee, like I said, the voice of reason. And we have Tom Benton producing as well. How are you, Tom?
I am doing fine. Friday is finally here.
Has your week been that long and terrible and awful that you're just waiting for Friday to get here?
Not so much, but, you know, the weekend is here. It always is good.
Yes, it is. It always is good, but you can't start your weekend off until you listen to an episode of Beyond Reason Radio, and we have a lot to get to in today's show. You can call 407-916-5400 or text 23680 if you have any comments. We are on Facebook Live as well, and what you really should do is send me a friend request on Facebook. Because we're friends, we're pals, we're buddies already. So what you should do is send me a friend request, search Michael Yaffee, Yaffee, and I will accept it. Or you can just like the Beyond Reason Radio Facebook page. So I'm going to get into more of the court ruling later in the show. Oh, it's a 2-hour show, by the way. We're on till 8 p.m., by the way. So we'll have a lot more time to get into a lot more stuff, and there is a lot to get into. So I'm going to get into the court ruling and more analysis. I posted, if you're friends with me on Facebook, I posted so many stories and so many opinions on the court ruling today that if you want a good opinion, all you have to do is friend me on Facebook and you will find it. So good stuff there. We'll get more into that later in the show. But the first thing I really want to address today. Oh, by the way, we will, if we have time, we'll do a Beyond Reason Trump Twitter update. That's always fun. He's been very active on Twitter this week. We haven't done that in a few shows, and we might even do things that made Yaffee laughy. You know, the new favorite segment of the show, things that made Yaffee laughy. So we'll probably get into that as well. But the first thing I want to start into today, because it's really, really becoming a pet peeve of mine. It's really, really starting to drive me insane. And that is all of this boycott stuff, that now we have to boycott everything, depending on what side of the aisle you're on. Yes, so if you don't like Trump, that means you have to boycott Under Armour now. That's the new one. You have to boycott Under Armour because the CEO said something positive about Trump. So that means everyone has to go and boycott Under Armour. And a lot of this controversy started, this has been going on for a while, and I've been talking about it for a while, but it started this week with the whole Nordstrom thing. Because Nordstrom, the clothing line, announced that they were going to stop selling Ivanka's Trump stuff. Now, they say it's because of weak sales, but there are a lot of people who say it's because of pressure from groups like #GrabYourWallet and their campaign to boycott Nordstrom until they get rid of Ivanka Trump's stuff. And TJ Maxx is doing something with that as well. And there's been a whole bunch of controversy going into this whole Nordstrom thing. So you have Nordstrom, you have people who are calling to boycott Uber because what they did during the Muslim ban protest, and it goes on. And by the way, this is not new to just the left. The right has been doing stuff like this too. The Target boycott would be something. And now there are people on the right calling to boycott Budweiser because of their ad at the Super Bowl. So, where does this end is what I want to know. Like, seriously, apparently I'm not going to be able to go anywhere, to any business. And I'm just going to have to, make my own food, grow my own food, and sew my own clothes, even though I don't know where I'd get the materials to sew the clothes because of all these boycotts.
Stores will put signs out on their windows, pro-Trump, anti-Trump.
Geez, please don't. Please don't. I want to laugh at that, but there's I could see that happening, to be perfectly honest with you. It scares the hell out of me.
Didn't somebody try that downtown with the gay-friendly stores?
Oh, don't get me... Don't get me started on that. So that whole thing. So if you don't put one of the gay-friendly decals, does that mean you hate gays?
No.
Does that mean you don't want gays to shop there? That whole thing was absurd. I know, the whole thing was completely absurd. Talk about that whole thing was just a giant PR campaign, using a tragedy as a giant PR campaign for Orlando. I've never seen anything like it, and it happened right in my city. So, before we get into more of my thoughts on all these stupid boycotts, this started even new controversy because now we have attacks on the president with conflicts of interest. Now we have attacks of Kellyanne Conway with conflicts of interest. And everyone is going crazy and saying all this stuff, and even conservatives, by the way, against Kellyanne Conway and Trump for their comments over this whole Nordstrom thing. And when you actually hear the comments, and this is why I consider myself the voice of reason, it's not worth all the hubbub, in my opinion. There's just people on the internet waiting every day to see if Trump or somebody in his administration does something wrong. So they say one little comment and they're like, oh, gotta type and make sure, put this on Twitter because they did this wrong and what hypocrites, and this is what we do all day. And this is why one of the reasons why we're so divided. It's one of the things I talked about in yesterday's show when I played Marco Rubio's comments when he was talking about how in the world can we get anything done when half the country literally hates the other half of the country. Instead of maybe understanding that maybe she made a mistake and just leaving it there. No, we have to do a federal probe into her ethics violations and maybe charge her with federal crime. I can't do it anymore. So this all started, though, because Nordstrom decided that they were going to drop Ivanka's clothing line. So Donald Trump, her father, I know he's the president, but he's also her father, he tweeted about this, and this is all he said, and maybe it's inappropriate for the president to say this. Okay, I get it, but this is all he said. He said, my daughter Ivanka has been treated so unfairly by Nordstrom. She is a great person, always pushing me to do the right thing. Terrible. That's it. He didn't even say boycott Nordstrom. He didn't even say go buy Ivanka's stuff or anything. He just said that she's been treated terribly, and she's a great person, and defending his daughter. And when you attack Trump on stuff like this, I'm telling you, public opinion is going to go more in Trump's direction because they understand he's just a loving father protecting his daughter. I know he's the president of the United States, and I agree that he shouldn't be putting one business over the other or anything like that. But can we just relax for a minute? Can we just take a deep breath for a minute and maybe just understand that he was just protecting his daughter and it was just one comment? And no, he's not going to start some kind of giant presidential campaign against Nordstrom. And no, there's no executive orders that he's signing against Nordstrom or anything like that. Am I going too far? 407-916-5400. So this started again because the next day, Kellyanne Conway was on Fox and Friends, and she was asked about this. Remember, she was asked about this. She didn't even bring it up on her own. They actually asked her the question, and she responded to the question. And now there's a whole bunch of controversy because, well, here's the conversation with her on Fox and Friends.
I do find it ironic that you've got some executives all over the internet bragging about what they've done to her and her line, and yet they're using the most prominent woman in Donald Trump's, most prominent,
right.
She's his daughter, and they're using her, who's been a champion for women empowerment,
sure.
Women in the workplace, to get to him.
Just,
so I think people can see through that.
30
Go buy Ivanka's stuff is what I would tell you. I hate shopping. I'm going to go get some on myself today.
There is that hashtag buy Ivanka right now, but there is that hashtag grab your wallet. Is that behind some of this stuff?
Well, some of it is, and we know where that came from, and that's been a huge failure. Goodness, they had a whole election. They had the first female president, everybody thought, talking about that day and night. She had no message, no positive message. That was her message. That failed at the ballot box. And then they had a march saying the same thing the day after he was sworn in as president. They're welcome to march, but what's coming of it in terms of, commercial interest? It's a wonderful line. I own some of it. I'm going to give a free commercial here. Go buy it today, everybody. You can find it online.
All right. Kellyanne Conway from the Brief Room.
That was it. I mean, it was just, she was asked about it. She says, it's not fair. Go buy Ivanka's stuff. I'll give you a free commercial. I like her stuff. Go buy it. I don't like the shop. Go buy it. That's it. That's all that was said. But no, she should be charged with federal crimes, maybe even thrown into prison, should be thrown off the administration. And I'm just like, can we just relax for a second? Can we just breathe for a second and maybe understand that she just made an offhanded comment as a person, because she's still a person, in response to a question of support because she felt like Ivanka was unfairly attacked and she's friends with Ivanka. I know. But now we have, and this is Republicans and Democrats doing this, by the way. We have a Republican, Jason Chaffetz, who tweeted out, what she did was wrong. Him and some Democrats got together and they wrote a letter to the White House, and they're looking into doing a federal probe into if she violated ethics and all this stuff and violated federal law and what should happen next. And as you pointed out to me yesterday, Tom Benson.
Yes.
What is there to probe?
Yeah. You know what she said.
She just...
You know how it was said.
That's it. That's all that happened. She just made an offhanded comment.
Do they think maybe somebody on Fox and Friends had a cue card up with the information written up ahead of time?
I don't know.
Exactly.
I think maybe that is what they think. That they think there's some kind of giant conspiracy in the White House to promote Ivanka's clothing line.
There's a saying, making a mountain out of a molehill. Here we go.
Exactly. And by the way, you know why Chaffetz is doing this? He had a town hall. He actually had a town hall recently this week where thousands of people showed up. And of course, this is what we do now for everything. They showed up and they protested and they yelled at him and they said, do your job. And he said, I don't agree everything with the president, but I did support him over Hillary. And he got booed by some of his constituents. And this was the town hall and it got heated and testy. And this is what we do now. We just, because he supports his president, the Republican president, and he actually doesn't even support him 100%. That's the other crazy thing. He even admitted that there were some things that he does wrong, but we go crazy over everything. There are people that spend all day on the internet and wherever looking for something to criticize Trump about, even little things like this. I know a lot of conservatives too disagree with me, but I just think it's crazy. And by the way, nobody had a problem when First Lady Michelle Obama, she did an interview with Vogue in 2016, last year, where she said, according to Vogue, Obama remarked, this is Michelle Obama, there are definitely designers that I love, people I love to work with, and who they are as people matters. Are they good people? Do they treat their staff well? Do they treat my staff well? Are they young? Can I give them a boost? The implication here, of course, is that Michelle Obama deliberately exploited her position at First Lady to boost the sales of private businesses. And what happens is she would wear these dresses and promote her wearing these dresses. And people would look at the dresses, and she did this on purpose because she liked certain people, thought they deserved a boost, and people went out and bought the dresses in larger numbers. And you know what? I don't care. I really don't care that she did that. Fine, whatever. But so what, is she not supposed to wear clothes now? But the thing is, can we just relax a little bit with the boycotts and the probes and making a mountain out of a molehill, like Tom Benson said, because everything else is just beyond reason. I want to get more into my thoughts on all these boycotts. And this is another thing where I think a lot of conservatives out there will actually disagree with me, because I think a lot of conservatives like boycotts when it promotes what they want to boycott. And I just think it's just dividing us even more. 407-916-5400. Text to 23680. So much stuff to get into. I have not even got into Hillary Clinton's comments this week she made a couple days ago. We're going to get to that in the show and talk about what she said. The future is female. Oh, apparently it's going to be like Wonder Woman and Amazon Island and all that stuff, without any men, I guess. I don't know. 479-1650-400. Text to 23680. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I am your host, Michael Yaffee, and we will be right back.
You want to listen to Beyond Reason Radio live on your smartphone? Download the Beyond Reason Radio app now. Available in the Google Play or Apple App Stores. The voice of reason in a world that is beyond reason is back now.
Yes, welcome back to the show, everyone. I am your host, Michael Yaffee. This is Beyond Reason Radio. Make sure if you miss any of the show to download the podcast of the show anywhere podcasts are available. We are doing this show till 8 p.m. tonight, a special 2-hour edition of Your Voice of Reason, and we've been talking about all the boycotts and all the nonsense over the boycotts and all the cries of conflict of interest because they responded to boycotts. And I don't even know where I'm going to go to buy my dinner tonight because I'm not sure if the CEO agrees with my politics, and I don't know what I'm going to do because all these stupid boycotts. All right, let's take some calls here. Let's go to David in Orlando. David, what's your take on all this?
Yeah, good evening, Michael. How are you?
I'm pretty good. How you doing?
Yeah, I talked to you about a year and a half ago when they had that little debate party when it was at Doc's, and I sat next to you and your wonderful parents.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I was the one that had the picture of candidate Donald Trump, now President Trump, when he had that picture of him speaking in front of the USS Iowa in L.A. Harbor the day before the debate at the Reagan Library.
Nice. And
remember that?
Yeah, I remember that. I miss those debate parties.
I told Bud Hinton and a lot of people that Trump was going to not only destroy the field but become the next president. And of course, he won by the electoral college, and you have to win by the electoral college. That's how the founders.
Oh, you're right. You were right.
That way.
You were right. So, what's your take on what we're talking about?
Yeah, I think all this about Kellyanne Conway, all this at the mountain out of molehill, just nothing. I mean, she was a paid spokesman for Ivanka Trump. That's a question Fox News. He gave a plug. No, that's it. Donald Trump, President Trump went up in North Carolina, hit Cleartown. Did anybody go after the President of the United States when he defended her daughter? No.
Right. Okay. So
now remember this. This is going to make all the companies go online and buy all her products right and left off the shelves anyway. And remember this. It's something I've been saying to a lot of people. I'm also a member of the Orange County Republican Executive Committee, so I know a few people in the know. Every time, Michael, the more these people go after Donald Trump, the stronger he becomes, the higher it becomes in the poll, and he always will have to win this thing at the end, including the immigration thing, because Obama put the thing in 2011, and the Congress approved it for the 7 nations. He will win at the end in the Supreme Court. He has it, the Attorney General.
Gotcha. I appreciate your call. Gotcha. Wow. Whew. You had a lot to say. Yeah, but I agree with them. The more the left attacks him on a lot of this stuff, he actually just ends up winning in the end. It just helps him in the end. I've said that before, that a lot of these protests and a lot of this craziness, he's going to win in the public opinion with a lot of this stuff. I don't think it's going to help it. I don't think it's going to help the Democrats.
Well, I think that's the point Bob wants to make online there.
All right. Well, let's see. Let's go to line 3 then. Bob, how are you today?
I'm well, Michael. I had just mentioned that, we, the ones that are supporting Donald Trump, that have supported him from the beginning, we don't need to be boycotting anybody. We just need to throw our support to the ones that we feel are standing up for our president. And we can even do a symbolic gesture, like maybe just like all Donald Trump supporters buy gas from ExxonMobil and see how that tilts the scales for like a month. We start recognizing, hey, we don't need a boycott. We'll put our money where our mouth is.
Gotcha. I understand what you're saying. I appreciate your call. I don't even want to do that. here's a radical thought. Why don't we go to a business and use their product or service based on the quality of their product or service? You know, I'm probably on Friday nights, a lot of times after the show, I go to Taco Bell. I know it's so, whatever. But why do I go there?
$5 meal deal.
Well, that's a big part of it too. Yes, because I'm cheap. But because I likes their food. Or I go somewhere else because I like their food. I don't care about their politics, Go to ExxonMobil and get gas because the gas station's there and it's convenient. Or you'll like the convenience store. Or you'll like 7-Eleven or wherever. I don't care. Wawa because you like their sandwiches. Just go because you like their product. Why? I wish so. I think I'm the only one who thinks this, but I wish so much we could just get to that point again. Because now we have a boycott by Under Armour. And it was just the chief executive of Under Armour, Kevin Plank, and all he said on CNBC is Trump is a real asset for the country. That's it. Gave his political opinion. So now people who use Under Armour and Stars or whatever that are sponsor them, they're upset and are thinking about leaving Under Armour. Stephen Curry said, I agree with that description if you take the ET off asset, which is, I know. And then you have, let's see, who else said this? You have Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, who I usually like, and I like his movies, and I go to his movies because I like his movies. Another thing, just go if you like the movie. He had some strong words to share as well. He said the CEO's comments trampled the beliefs of many of the company's employees.
Well, he probably already also championed the beliefs of a lot of people in the company. Yeah,
but so he can't just give an opinion?
I think a lot of these people who react this way are reacting to peer pressure and don't even know all that's involved. They're low, as some would call them, low information type voters.
He said, Dwayne The Rock Johnson said, these are neither my words nor my beliefs. His words were divisive and lacking in perspective. All he said was Trump is an asset to the country. He gave his opinion on Trump. That's it. What is so divisive about that? He didn't say he's not against you having a different opinion. He's not going to fire you if you voted somebody differently. He just gave his freaking opinion. Okay, let's go to another call. James in Orlando. James, what's your take on this?
Hey, Yaffee. Just a couple of quick comments. There's an old saying that the hardest thing to see is something that's not there. And that struck me after the Ninth Circuit ruling, is that there were no protests in the streets. Nobody got out there and jumped up and down. And the second thing is just to remind you, I don't know if you're old enough to remember Harry Truman, but he had a daughter who tried to be a singer, and she got a very nasty critique from a reviewer, and he threatened to beat the guy up in the newspaper. So presidents defending their daughter are nothing new. It's right. Like you say, it's much ado about nothing, a tempest in a teapot, let it go.
Gotcha. James, couldn't agree with you more. 100%. Yes, I obviously am not old enough to remember Harry Truman. I was not there, but I have read his biography and know about all this stuff. So, believe or not, yeah. 407-916-5400, text to 23680. Yeah, don't get me started on all these protests and everything. In fact, we're going to get into it. I think we're in the next half hour. The other thing that people are protesting now is all the women's rights comments and what Hillary Clinton said about women. And this is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We will be right back.
If you miss any of the show, you can download the Beyond Reason podcast on iTunes. This is Orlando's Smart Talk Radio. Beyond Reason Radio continues now.
And you can text to 23680 or call 407-916-5400. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. I just got a text in from someone who's not happy with me. Says, you can downplay it all you want, but the fact of the matter is Conway was wrong. As a public figure in the highest office, you stick to politics, not endorsements. There's a lot of talk about us snowflakes, I guess he's a liberal, needing a safe place. Well, all I've heard from this administration is bitching and moaning because people are mean to them or are treating them unfairly. For one, I do agree with one thing. This administration, and especially Trump, does bitch and moan a lot. You're exactly right. But I'm not necessarily saying what Kellyanne did was great and right, but I just think we make a bigger deal out of it than it really is. That was my only point. But if you really want to criticize Ivanka Trump, criticize the fact that her stuff is made in China. And that goes totally against everything Trump talks about and has talked about in his campaign. So if we're really going to, I just want real criticism. I'm not against criticism. I'm not afraid of criticism, but I just want it based on real things, not just taking these little things and blowing them way out of proportion. But that's just my opinion. I'll end with something I read here in the Washington Times by Valerie Richardson when she was talking about all these boycotts. She said, at this rate, you may need to churn your own butter, brew your own beer, and cobble your own shoes to avoid violating the boycotts organized by opponents of President Trump. Don't shop online at Amazon or Zappos, but don't buy goods at Walmart or Kmart. Don't drink Miller or Coors beer, and don't eat See's candy. Don't buy clothes at Macy's or TJ Maxx. And whatever you do, don't watch NASCAR races or UFC fights. But the pro-Trump supporters say boycott Budweiser and all this other stuff. And Target. So we're going to be left churning our own butter and making our own clothes, I guess, with all these boycotts. So that's what I'm going to end on that note. But I want to move on to something that Hillary Clinton said earlier this week that I just had not had a chance to get to this in the show this week so far, that I really think is actually pretty important. And she was at a conference, Makers, I guess and she was talking to female, women, and she came out and had a video displayed to them, and this is what she said.
Despite all the challenges we face, I remain convinced that yes, the future is female. Just look at the amazing energy we saw last month as women organized a march that galvanized millions of people all over our country and across the world. Now more than ever, we need to stay focused on the theme of this year's conference, Be Bold. We need strong women to step up and speak out. We need you to dare greatly and lead boldly. So please, set an example for every woman and girl out there who's worried about what the future holds and wonders whether our rights, opportunities, and values will endure. And remember, you are the heroes and history makers, the glass ceiling breakers of the future. As I've said before, I'll say again, never doubt that you are valuable and powerful and deserving of every chance and opportunity in the world.
So I'm not necessarily against saying that women are valuable, because they are. I mean, half the reason why we had chivalry in the past and men did things for women is because they believed women were valuable. That was kind of the whole point. But what I'm getting at is, and it goes back to the whole identity politics, the future is female. Well, for one, that implies that females, I guess, don't have opportunities now, which every time I bring up subjects like this, you know who disagree with Hillary on stuff like this more? Women. I talk to more women that have a problem with the Women's March and with all this feminist talk in the Audi commercial saying women are going to, it talked about, I have to tell my daughter that she will not be seen as equal and she will not be paid as much. And then I talk to people and I put it on social media and I get more responses from women saying it's dumb than from men. So this whole thing, and you have to remember, A lot of women voted against Hillary Clinton. Let's stop with this whole, it's because she's a female thing. Mm-hmm. No, it's because she was a terrible candidate. But I found an interesting piece in the National Review that really, I think, made this point well. And what do you know? It's written by a woman, by Heather Wilhelm. And this is what she said. And I thought she made some good points. She said, personally, as a mom who has sons, I'm exhausted by this particular brand of malarkey. I love that word, malarkey. I think we should bring that back, malarkey. She continues on here. What does the future is female even mean? What are you saying? Men, it's time to take a step back because the future is female. How about we look at each other as, individuals? Is one half of the human race going into hiding? She continues, fading into irrelevance. Will they be rocketing off to outer space, hunched inside Tesla-designed capsules, never to be seen or heard from again? Imagine, if you will, an audience of little boys, let's pretend they're second and third graders, forced to sit in an auditorium and listen to Hillary Clinton's short speech. They swing their legs, they fidget a bit. The future is female, Clinton declares, beamed in on a giant screen. What are they supposed to think, other than that girls matter more than they do? Fortunately, if I'm reading the tea leaves correctly, Clinton isn't exactly destined to live as a leading trendsetter and guru for America's young men. Okay? Unfortunately, we don't need to force America's cohort of young males into goofy feminist conference rooms for them to hear her message. All they need is a brief dip into our culture at large. Take Disney's Dream Big Princess campaign, which informs cartoon viewers that girls can and should do anything they want in life. Astronaut, president, celebrity chef, while boys merit no mention at all. Other ad campaigns take a darker note, suggesting that men and women are constantly pitted against each other in the demolition derby of life rather than partners who work together. That's an interesting point. Now that I think about that. Isn't that exactly what that kind of thing does? That kind of mentality does? It kind of puts us against each other. It's more of this division. It's more of this, it's men versus female. It's men bringing down the woman. And then females have to rise above the men, putting them down. And the future is female, and the future is women will win the battle against men.
Class warfare, sexist warfare.
Yeah, you have class warfare, you have sexist warfare, you have racist warfare. We're always divided against each other. And then she makes the point, maybe a lot of times men and women actually work together and actually help each other to succeed and actually work in partnership in different ways to raise their kids and have different roles. Yes, and they're different biologically, but they still doesn't mean one is less valuable than the other. But what has happened is it's this whole revenge thing. Well, women didn't have as much opportunities in the past, so they deserve more opportunities than men now. And yet when I talk to so many women, they don't feel like they're being attacked. They don't feel like their rights have been infringed. They don't feel like that there's any difference in terms of opportunity. And a lot of the women that stay at home and take care of their kids, believe it or not, they want to. They just want to. It's nature.
Different agendas.
Yeah, exactly.
My question would be, was that an appearance by Hillary Clinton worth $10,000 or $100,000?
Oh, exactly right. Exactly right. 479-16-5400. Text to 23680. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee, and we will be right back.
Download the iHeart Radio app and catch the Beyond Reason Radio podcast. The conscience in your ear telling you the difference between right and wrong. Yaffee is back on the air.
Right. Get yourselves together. Right. Stand up and live your life. Right. Get yourselves together. Right. Hands up high.
Yes, welcome back to the show, everyone. This is Beyond Reason Radio, where I'm the voice of reason in a world that is beyond reason. I am your host, Michael Yaffee. You probably know me from the morning show, Good Morning Orlando, that I produce and co-host right here on WFLA from 6 to 9 a.m. and they give me the pleasure, the honor of doing my own show Friday evenings, and we've been doing it 6 to 8 p.m. By the way, I did a show last night at 9 p.m. and the night before at 9 p.m., and if you missed any of those shows, what I want you to do right now is download the Beyond Reason Radio app. The Google Play or Apple App Store, you can download that app. You can get the podcasts of the old show, and you can also send comments to me as well. It is the best way to keep in touch with me, but you can also get me on iHeartRadio and anywhere else podcasts are available. So we've been talking a lot on this show about just the crazy division that exists in our country right now over everything. And we started off with the boycotts and how the boycotts have just gotten crazy. And it's really being done on both sides. It's being done really on the left right now because Trump's president, but the right's been doing it too with, with boycott. They want to boycott with Target boycotts, and they want to boycott Budweiser. And there's been other boycotts as well. And it's just gone crazy. We're to the point where I don't even know where I'm allowed to shop anymore because I'm afraid I might disagree with the CEO's politics or something. And then it goes back to the protests. We had the Women's March and what they're basically saying, women don't have any of these opportunities. And really a lot of it's just pitting men against women, which isn't good for the future. There was a story today, which I might get to later in the show, where Betsy DeVos, all the controversy around her for education secretary. Well, there was protests today blocking her from entering a D.C. middle school. And in fact, someone's being charged with assault on an officer in that instance. They might be charged with assault on Betsy DeVos herself. It's just crazy. I mean, if you disagree with her, fine, but does that mean you have to protest and assault her and block her from trying to do her job? This is not how politics is really supposed to work. So and another point on that, and Tom Benson, you had actually pointed out this to me. There was someone that was on Cavuto's show.
Yeah, and Neil Cavuto, Your World Today, they were talking about the word or the phrase Muslim ban.
Yeah,
the Democrats are using it, and even in Iran they're using it to raise up anti-American semitism. But anyway, there was a woman on Your World Today who is a Muslim American citizen. She disagreed, and here's how it went down.
It is a term Democrats are also using to describe the president's extreme vetting order. Asra Nomani is a Muslim American. She says this is not a Muslim ban. Good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks so much, Maria.
You also feel that this is really detrimental to the country coming together and getting things done.
Absolutely. What we faced after the election, I believe, is something that I'm calling a hashtag intifada. Maria, as you know, intifada is a term used in our Muslim world to talk about a rebellion, a resistance. And, it's being presented as hashtag resist, hashtag, Donald Trump is Hitler. There's just so much rhetoric that's going on right now that is being presented now and exploited by Muslim extremists around the world to paint America as against Muslims. And what I fear is that the left is, in fact, cooperating with this narrative that America is hostile to Muslims. I am Muslim. I feel more safe in this country than I do in any Muslim country in the world.
In fact, in your op-ed that I'm looking at, you say this is the alt-left cyber jihad against Trump and his supporters. It's almost as if, Asra, the people are forgetting what just happened. I mean, the people voted for Donald Trump, and, extreme vetting is actually one of his more popular executive orders in the country.
Yeah, Maria, the left is right now triumphant about the idea that it has won in court. But I do believe deeply in my heart, as a lifelong liberal, that the left is losing in the court of public opinion. The Democratic Party is in a shambles. I was proud to be a liberal because I thought bleeding heart liberals was a good thing. I thought it was a fine compliment to be compassionate about society. But now what I've experienced myself personally and seen in the streets of America is that, in fact, the left is more than happy to just rip the heart out of people and stomp on it in order to, further its own interests. And I do believe that the Democratic Party is failing us as a country also in that it did lose an election, and it needs to stop with this, humiliation that it's constantly trying to do of the Trump administration, and allow this party that has won to govern in a way that will serve our country.
There was so much good stuff there. I don't know really where to begin, but the thing that really spoke to me was what she said at the beginning, the hashtag how do you say infatada?
Yeah.
Hashtag infatada, where we just have these massive hashtag attacks on all these different things. And she's a liberal. She's a Muslim and she's a liberal. And yet she's making the point that really the left is not helping their cause. They're just making things worse. And a lot of it's with this so-called hashtag infatadas over everything, and the rhetoric has just gotten so low, so shallow, so divisive. She talked about how they're calling Trump Nazis, and she's like, look, you might disagree with him, but we're not at a point, for one, where Muslims should be afraid to live in this country. She's like, I'm a Muslim, and I feel safer in this country than most Muslim countries. She also makes the point in terms of just the fact that he won. That he won the presidency, and even though she's a Democrat and a liberal and doesn't like Trump, maybe the left should at least acknowledge, hey, look, he won, okay? You can disagree with his policies, but we have gotten to a point, on both sides really, where we can't do that anymore. It's just like what Rubio said earlier this week. How can we get anything done in this country? How can we move on and move forward as a country when half the country literally hates the other half of the country? But it's good that maybe people on both sides are starting to realize how dangerous this is, and maybe we can move past this. We'll see what happens. Most of it's just Beyond Reason. All right, we have one more hour to go here on Beyond Reason Radio. That hour went by fast. If you missed any of it, make sure to check the podcast anywhere podcasts are available. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We'll get into the ruling against Trump's immigration ban next, and so much more. And, well, you have to stay tuned, and I will be right back. So apparently, I don't know if you can see it here, but in some parts of the country of the world, you can see a partial lunar eclipse and a comet at the same time. Is that like the sign of the end of the world or something?
I think it's one of them, yeah.
Oh, it is? Yeah. So you really should listen to this show then before the end of the world happens, because who would want to do that? This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee, the voice of reason in a world that is beyond reason. We just did 1 hour of the show from 6 to 7 p.m. If you missed any of that show, I will post the podcast of the show later on. And by the way, the best way to catch the podcast is friend me on Facebook. Search Michael Yaffee, Yaffee, rhymes with Laffy Taffy. I hate pointing that out because then everyone calls me Yaffee, Laffy, Taffy. I've been called that my whole life. It's not original. But there you go. It rhymes with that. You can send me a friend request on Facebook, and it's really good to do that because I think I probably posted six stories on the judicial ruling against Trump on the immigration executive order today. Lots of different opinions, lots of stuff I've been reading up on, lots of different takes on this. Obviously, you know my opinion. Especially if you listened to last night's show, I went into the ruling itself, what the ruling actually said, and why I disagree with the ruling. To me, it's pretty obvious that most of this, I agree with Trump, that I think a lot of this was just about politics. And that court is notoriously known for being liberal in its politics. It's one of the most overturned courts in the country. I don't know anyone who was really shocked that the court ruled this way. I think a lot of people expected the court to rule this way. So there's a lot of different things. I had problems in the ruling when it comes to, it basically said illegal aliens have the same rights as citizens, which to me is ridiculous. It basically says, well, they think what Trump really wanted to do was a Muslim ban, even though there's nothing in the law that says it's a Muslim ban. So motive really doesn't apply there because it's not in the law. So I had a problem with that as well. There's lots of different things in the rulings and a lot of different stuff I'm going to get to. But I thought I would start out in talking about my take on the ruling from the Ninth Circuit on Trump's executive order. And we'll get your take as well. You can call 407-916-5400. You can text to 23680. I am on Facebook Live as well if you want to watch on there and what we're talking about. So I thought I would start with this because this person actually does not like Trump's ban. He doesn't like the executive order itself. But even he makes the argument that even if you don't like it, and this is what I've been saying, a lot of people don't like it. And it's one thing not to like it as a policy. But what we're talking about now is its legality. And it seems to me there's a lot of evidence to suggest that it was perfectly legal. So I'm talking about Charles Krauthammer. He, I don't mean to always play him, but he was on Fox, and the reason why I wanted to play him because he has a piece on this as well that he put out in his column today, and I'll read part of that. But he doesn't like the policy. He thinks the policy is a disaster. So he's a conservative who doesn't like Trump's policy, but even he is making the argument that whether you like it or not, it's legal. So I thought if I'm going to be a little fair, if I'm going to get more of a reasonable response, I could play a lot of people that are usually pretty biased on these things. And by the way, if someone is biased, it doesn't mean they're wrong. I think we all have biases, but I hear this all the time. Well, they're biased. We can't listen to them because they're biased. Well, just because they're biased doesn't mean they're wrong. You should still take a listen, even if you disagree. I don't mind listening to other people's opinions on stuff. I don't mind listening to people who disagree with me on stuff. I like opinion a lot because you get a level of analysis in opinion pieces and in opinion radio and opinion TV that you don't really get when it's just straight reporting. I think it's a good thing to add. But I hear that all the time. Well, this paper is biased, so they have to be wrong. Well, not necessarily. They could be right, even though they are biased. So I've just that's kind of a side note there, but something I wanted to talk about. But Charles Krauthammer, he was on Tucker last night. He's been on a bunch of TV stations about this as well. And he was on Tucker, and he was asked about his thoughts on the Ninth Circuit denying Trump's executive order. This is what he said.
Look, I think this is a disgraceful conclusion because what they did is they substituted their judgment as to what constitutes a threat to American security for the president's. Now, we were all interested in what they think, but that is irrelevant to the case. The case was, does the president have the authority to do it? And if he does, it's his judgment to make. And that's the plain reading of the law. It's the plain understanding of the Constitution. I think the policy was unwise, but that's irrelevant.
Right.
I think it is very clearly legal. This is the most left-wing, most overturned court in the country. So I think for the administration, and considering that Trump does not like to lose, I think he may want to go to the Supreme Court.
So his point there, basically, and I agree with it. I disagree. I think the policy is fine. He disagrees with the policy, but I agree with what he's saying there. Is that what the judge did, what the judges did, what the court did, is they interpreted whether it was an effective policy, whether the threat was worth doing the policy. And this is an argument I've heard from a lot of different people, that the government did not make a good enough case to show that there was enough of a threat to put in place this policy. So the judges decided, well, there's not enough of a threat to put in their opinion. And this is why I said that's what he's talking about. The judges are putting their opinion on the case here. In their opinion here, they're saying, well, there wasn't enough threat. But what Krauthammer's saying is that is really irrelevant because that's not what the case is about. The case is whether he has the authority to put this in place, and the statutes and federal law and precedent shows he has the authority to put this in place based on his judgment, that historically this judgment was given to the president. And whether you disagree with his judgment on the threat, is completely irrelevant. That was not the judge's job. That was not the court's job. The court's job was to show, does he have the authority? But if you read the ruling, they twist themselves in knots trying to say, well, he doesn't have the authority and go and due process illegal alien and all this stuff. And that's irrelevant. It's not their place. It's never been the court's place to say that. All the court had to say is, well, he has the authority to do this. If you disagree with it, well, that's one thing. If you think it's poor judgment, that's one thing. But it's not the court's place to determine whether that is right or wrong. Because that is given to the president. It is up to the president of the United States to deem what is best for national security. And there is evidence that there is a threat. There was a Senate Judiciary Committee hearing that came out with 60 people have been arrested in the past year. There was the Somali immigrant at Ohio State who was killed trying to commit a terrorist attack. There have been terrorist attacks in Europe from refugees. There was Iraqi refugees a few years ago that were arrested trying to commit terrorist attacks. ISIS has said that they're going to use refugee flows to attack the U.S. Assad, the dictator of Syria, said that there are terrorists within the refugees, and there's no doubt in his mind that there is. So there is evidence to point that out. And the judges know this. They know this. And by the way, another thing that was pointed out is these countries were listed by the Obama administration, and that was pointed out in the hearings as well. So we go back to this whole argument that, well, the government did not make their case well enough to show that there was enough of a threat to put this executive order in place. And Charles Krauthammer was asked specifically that question about, why this happened, and this is what he said.
Well, on the first question, I was listening in to the oral arguments, and the Trump side, the federal government side, was, I thought, exceedingly weak. I don't think they were throwing the game. I don't think this is a guy who went in there deliberately to lose. I think this was a junior guy. I'm told the top two were unable to do it for whatever reason, had to recuse themselves. And remember, I think this is a mistake, a tactical error by the administration. You don't go into a decision like this, executive order like this, where you know you're going to get sued. You know you might get stayed unprepared. They did it before having an attorney general in place, so they are dependent on the career people who are not necessarily the top of their class. I don't think this was a guy who was playing the 1919 White Sox throwing the World Series. I think he just wasn't. He was a minor leaguer who was, had to bat in the World Series.
So I'll leave it up to Krauthammer to give baseball analogies. He loves baseball. If you read his book, I read a lot of his writings, he loves baseball. So leave it up to him to do that. But he makes the point that, yes, they did a poor job of making the case, but to him that's irrelevant because in terms of what they're making the case in terms of if it wasn't enough of a threat, because that's irrelevant to the case, according to him. And that makes a lot of sense to me. And I've heard other opinions as well saying that's irrelevant. The only thing that was at issue is if he has the authority to do it. Well, he obviously has the authority to do it if you read the statutes, if you look at federal law, and if you look at history. But now we've set another precedent that a couple of judges can come in and say, based on, well, the president has poor judgment, can come in and overrule what the president wants to do for national security. To me, that is a dangerous precedent. So the next question is, what happened next? What happens next? Does Trump go to the Supreme Court, take this to the Supreme Court, where it could be a 4-4 tie, and that means the appeals court ruling stands? Or, and I've heard a lot more of this as a possibility, does he go back and try to rewrite the law, rewrite the executive order, and then put that in place, and maybe that one will be able to stand up in court a lot better? What do you think is going to happen? What do you think is the right move? The biggest problem with Trump is Trump wants to win. So if he goes back and he rewrites the executive order, to some people, and maybe even to Trump, that would be an admission of guilt, and that would show that maybe he's saying he lost. I don't know about that. There's a lot of people saying just rewrite the executive order, make it clear, one, the threats that the country face, and two, that people that have visas already are able to enter this country, make that clear in the executive order, and this won't be a problem. I'm not convinced of that, because I think what a lot of these judges are doing is based more on their political opinions than on what the way the executive order was written. So I think no matter what Trump does, that there's going to be these courts and these judges who are going to do this. In fact, when you look at the original guy who put the ban, who stopped Trump to begin with, the original judge who stopped Trump to begin with, he didn't even make an argument on why. He didn't even make the judge who issued the temporary restraining order never even made a case for its illegality. So that to me tells me that a lot of this is about politics, I think, and that's unfortunate. So now there's calls now, if we're going to make it about politics, then let's make it about politics. If they're going to make it about politics, we're going to fight it the political way. And now there are calls now to break up the Ninth Circuit Court because of this. If you're going to play this political game, then let's play this political game to win and break up this court that's caused so many problems to begin with. And it's probably too big from what I've read as well. So what do you all think about this? 407-916-5400, text to 23680. There's so much more I have to get to on this case. A lot more I have to get to in the show. Chuck Schumer is trying to block another cabinet nominee, and we'll talk about that. Plus, we have the Beyond Reason Radio Trump Twitter update. I know that's some people's favorite part of the show as well. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We will be right back.
Listen to the latest episodes of Beyond Reason. Download the podcast at Spreaker.com, the place where we talk faith, culture, and politics. Beyond Reason Radio continues.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I am your host, Michael Yaffee, once again. So, how many days are we into the Trump administration? Has it been 100 days? Yeah, it seems like it.
It's only been 22.
22, that's it, huh? Wow. Yeah, it's only been 3 weeks. Whew. Seems like a lot more. But, you know, as I've talked about before with this, when you actually go back and look what other presidents have done, it's not that Trump has done so much more. It's that he just has a way of bringing attention to everything he's doing. Mm-hmm. You know, executive orders are not new, but what's new is bringing in the press and watching him sign them and then putting them up to the cameras and, you know, everything. That's new, and Trump loves it, and he's good at that. He's the marketer in chief, I guess, is in a lot of situations.
P.T. Barnum is his middle name.
Exactly right. So, and it just drives the left crazy, and maybe that's why they're going crazy too, but all they're doing is feeding the fire and giving him more attention, you know? Anyway, so we've been talking about the ruling against the Trump immigration ban, and I found this story from the Washington Examiner that kind of took me aback a little bit on this. Because the question is now, what happens next? Does he go to the Supreme Court? There's talk, I mean, we were reading some conflicting reports in some of the breaks, Tom, you and I, about some are saying he might go to the Supreme Court, some are saying he might rewrite the order, some are saying they might go to another court.
Well, these different websites are doing their own speculating, hoping that they're right.
Yeah.
But I see your point you made earlier that if he went to a new order, it'd be like giving up on the first one, and he hates to lose.
Exactly.
He does it. He does a lot of what he does because he likes to win.
And one of the other points was, well, does he wait for this new guy, Gorsuch, to be confirmed, which they think would give him a better chance of winning this? Or does he go take the chance where it could be a 4-4 tie, even though some are saying they think in this kind of case with this kind of presidential authority that he might actually be able to get one of the liberal judges on his side?
Well, the Senate hasn't even scheduled a vote yet on his appointment.
Right.
It could be at the earliest April before he takes his seat on the bench.
Well, that might be good for Trump then, to go to the Supreme Court without him, believe it or not. Because this piece that I found in the Washington Examiner, this is what the headline says, And it took me aback, but it makes a really interesting point here. It says on Trump's, this is by Ilya Shapiro. It says on Trump's travel ban executive order, Gorsuch is more likely to oppose it than Garland, Obama's nominee. Could you imagine if there would be like another John Roberts situation?
Yeah.
Where, you put him up there and then you think he's going to rule. And
do they say on what grounds? Just on past rulings?
Well,
what do they base that on?
Well, let's see here. It says Garland was a so-called moderate liberal who had a long career as a prosecutor and Justice Department official before becoming a judge. What this translates to on the bench is that he's extremely solicitous of assertions of federal power. Meaning that whether environmental regulation or labor law enforcement, or immigration, he's a solid vote for the government. So that means that if the federal government is putting forth this executive order on immigration, because he's more pro-government in these things and has been in the past, he has a more of a chance to vote for the government, which means vote for Trump in Trump's favor. Now, this is Obama's guy. This was Garland, who he nominated. But then this person in this article makes the case that Gorsuch is not that way, and Gorsuch, if is on the court, might actually go against Trump in this, which is, I mean, it was very interesting when I was reading this. It said Gorsuch, Gorsuch, on the other hand, has led a campaign against judicial over-deference to the executive. In a 2015 case called Denise Robles v. Lynch, principles of equal protection and due process to hold that the more an agency acts like a legislator, announcing new rules of general applicability, the closer it comes to the norm of legislation and the stronger the case becomes for limiting application of the agency's decision to future conduct. So, in plain speak, that means the more these agencies act like legislators, the bigger chance he is to rule against them.
And he doesn't want to set a precedent.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So accordingly, he ruled against the ad hoc government action and for an illegal immigrant petitioner. He said apparently, the article continues that apparently he made a similar argument in another case last August, where he wrote a concurrence to his own majority opinion, which shows that he understands the judicial role, but also thinks more deeply about the law, yada, yada, yada. He said, there's an elephant in the room with us today, but the fact is broad deference doctrines permit executive bureaucracies to swallow huge amounts of core judicial and legislative power and concrete federal power in a way that seems more than a little difficult to square with the Constitution of the framers' design. Maybe the time has come to face the behemoth. So what he's saying again is this was another instance, another case where he ruled against the government because he believed the government was overreaching. So, and he wants to limit that power. Now, this is why we like him. This is why conservatives like him, because we don't want any branch of the government to overreach here. And in any case, so we want him to interpret the law based on the Constitution, not his personal opinion. So that's why he like him. But this article is making the case that that might actually not be in Trump's best interest. So I found that very fascinating. Now, I would disagree that this is an overreach by the federal government because the law plainly gives him the authority, as I've said before. But so that kind of throws in a little wrench on what Trump should do next. Should he try to get this in the Supreme Court before Gorsuch points this out? And of course, there was that whole controversy this week where Gorsuch criticized Trump on his comments on the so-called judge, saying, it was disheartening and he didn't like those comments. And then Trump said, oh, that's not what really happened, even though it seems that there's a lot of evidence that that is exactly what happened. And Trump was wrong on that. Not that I'm siding with Blumenthal. He's a liar as well. But it seems like there was a lot of evidence that Trump was wrong on that the judge said that. But that's because he's a conservative judge who often questions the authority of the executive branch. That's just how Gorsuch is and has been in the past. Let's take a quick call here before we go to the break. Let's go to James in Orlando. James, how are you today?
Hey, Mike, it's me again. Just a quick thing on this. The Ninth Circuit was actually what's called an interlocutory appeal, which means that it's an appeal from the court below before there's a final judgment in the court. After this case, or after this stay was refused, it's still going to go back to the Washington court, and they're supposed to have a trial on March 27th. I do not believe that the Supreme Court will accept an appeal of an interlocutory appeal. Now, what they could try to do is have the case removed from the Washington federal court into the Supreme Court. But as far as what he's doing now, which is he applied for a stay to stay the stay that the Washington court judge put in, it's basically over with unless they want to have the en banc hearing, which on the news, somebody said that one of the judges out there had requested what's called by the court itself, or sua sponte request for an en banc hearing, which means somebody not on that three-judge panel but on the Ninth Circuit is unhappy with the ruling. So just throw that in for whatever it's worth.
Interesting. You know, I heard
Mike.
I was just going to say, I heard another issue I heard that Judge Napolitano was bringing up last night on a show is that there are actually like 47 other cases against Trump around the country, and what the Supreme Court, I guess, could do is lop them all together and then make kind of rule based on that. Does that sound anything like could happen, or?
Yeah, they can do that. It would be unusual that the Supreme Court would hear that many cases before they have final judgments or final decisions in their individual cases. And all it is the left trying to tie Trump up in court, and they don't realize how many lawyers the federal government has and can hire. So, you know,
interesting.
It's going to be this way for the next, hopefully, 8 years instead of just 4 years.
All right, James, I appreciate your call. Thank you so much. Yeah, well, so a lot of different stuff he can do there as well. We'll see what happens. Maybe he'll just rewrite it and give it up. So I don't know. 407-916-5400, text to 23680. A lot more to get to. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We'll be right back.
You know what's beyond reason? Yaffee is now on YouTube. Go to YouTube now and just search Beyond Reason Radio. Your safe space for conservative thought, not for political correctness. Yaffee is back right now.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. This is Orlando's Smart Talk Radio, Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. If you missed any of the show, make sure to check out the podcast of the show. Pretty much anywhere podcasts are available. You can get it on the iHeartRadio app. Also, I posted it on the WFLA page, so go to 1025WFLA.com, and it'll be up there as well. I'm also on Facebook Live. If you send me a friend request on Facebook, and search Michael Yaffee, send me your friend request, and you can see me. I'm also on the WFLA Facebook page and the Beyond Reason Radio Facebook page. So, the Senate Minority Leader, Chuck Schumer, of course, is not happy once again with Trump, which is pretty obvious. But this time it's over another cabinet position. So they've been attacking a lot of Trump's cabinet positions, you know, all the craziness that went into Betsy DeVos and that confirmation. So it looks like that's going to now move on to another cabinet pick. I don't know if they'll be as successful. I mean, they weren't successful with Betsy DeVos either, but this, I think, even less chance. And it's all dealing with the pick for Secretary of Labor. Trump's pick for Secretary of Labor is Andrew Puzder. Puzder is known for being the chief executive of CKE Restaurants, which is the parent company of Carl's Jr. and Hardee's. Schumer apparently doesn't like that. He apparently doesn't think a CEO should be there. Now, I don't really even know why we have a Department of Labor. Do we really even need a department? You know, it's kind of like with the whole Department of Education. You want to make, you know, If you don't want Betsy DeVos, how about we get rid of the Department of Education? Then I would be totally for that. Because why does the federal government have a Department of Education? It's ridiculous. It's completely not needed. Well, the Department of Labor is the same thing. I mean, nobody knows what they really do. It's completely unnecessary, not needed, not the role of the federal government in the Constitution, as many of you know. But Chuck Schumer had to come out this week, and he made a statement about Trump's pick, Andrew Puzder, for Secretary of Labor, and this is what he said.
In the nomination of Andrew Puzder, one of the most anti-worker nominees to any cabinet position, and probably the most anti-worker nominee to the Department of Labor ever. Remember the days when Republicans would actually nominate labor leaders to be head of the Department of Labor? My fellow New Yorker, Peter Brennan, was nominated by Richard Nixon. He was head of the building trades. This is amazing. They ought to withdraw Puzder's nominee before he further embarrasses this administration and further exposes the hypocrisy of President Trump in saying one thing to the workers of America and then doing another.
And what he meant to say is withdraw Puzder's nomination, not nominee. But so here's the thing that he's saying there. Because, and this was the same complaint with Betsy DeVos, Andrew Puzder is a CEO, so that means he's unqualified. He's not in union.
He's on the wrong side.
Yeah, exactly. He's not a union leader. We have to have union leaders do these jobs for the Department of Labor. And that he's not for the worker. This is another thing that Democrats always throw out there. They're for the worker. When Andrew Puzder came in as the CEO of CKE Restaurants, Hardee's was in a lot of trouble. The business was in a lot of trouble. He came in, and a lot of what he did saved that company and made it extremely prosperous. What happens when a CEO does that? Well, it creates jobs. It saves jobs. It gives people opportunities to enter the workforce that maybe didn't have opportunities before. It creates economic opportunity. Not only that, but when they expand stores, that people have to build the stores. People have to grow the food, so it expands farming. People have to deliver the food, so that's trucking. This is all economic opportunity, and it's all creating jobs and creating labor. So who better to be in that position than someone that understands what is best in the business community to actually create jobs? Because all the people in the labor unions want to do now is to, one, raise money for themselves and their union and give it to Democrats. And two, a lot of what they do ends up destroying economic growth and destroying jobs. How does that help the labor community? All you have to do is look at Detroit to see where big unions have made a lot of problems. All you have to do is look at the Rust Belt and see where these big unions have created a lot of problems. Oh, that's not because of big unions. That's because of China and Mexico and yada, yada, yada. No. It's not just because of that either. It's because of the unions. How do I know that? Because a lot of these car companies build plants in the South now and build plants in right-to-work states that don't have the union problems, and they're extremely successful. So that shows you right there how these unions have caused major problems in these areas. But this whole attack on Puzder, because he's a CEO, even though he probably knows more about what creates job and helps labor more than anyone because of his position, it's more of the class warfare stuff. It's more of them just attacking Trump, obviously, and it's more of them misunderstanding what makes an economy work. So I just thought I would share that with you. All right, in the next segment, we will have the Beyond Reason Trump Twitter update. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We'll be right back.
If you like Beyond Reason Radio, well, make sure to show it by liking the Facebook page at facebook.com/Beyond Reason Radio. Your voice of truth in a world of fake news. Beyond Reason Radio continues right now.
So it is that time of the show where you get to see what's on the president's mind. where we get to see what the president is thinking, where we get to see what the president has been saying. Sometimes it's good. Sometimes it's not so good. Sometimes it's a little weird. Sometimes it's spot on, which is what makes this segment so much fun, which is what makes this segment so much more interesting. It is time for the Beyond Reason Trump Twitter update.
I'm a tweet with a bird in a deodorant cage. Tweet is my name, but I don't know my age. I don't have to worry, and that is that. I'm safe in here from that old putty cat.
Beautiful. We're going to go through this big league. Yeah, I think, how about I try to do all of Trump's tweets in Trump's voice? You think we should do that?
Good luck.
Yes. Gonna make America great again. I'm still working on it. I need Bud here. He's much better at the voices than I am. Okay, I figured I would go back and start with his tweet on Nordstrom, since we talked about that earlier in the show. If you missed the first hour of the show, make sure to catch the podcast anywhere podcasts are available. So this is what Trump said 2 days ago, and we'll start from there and then move forward. My daughter Ivanka has been treated so unfairly by Nordstrom. She is a great person, always pushing me to do the right thing. Terrible.
You sound like Arnold.
No, I don't. No. All right, next one. And this is actually pretty interesting that he posted this, because I saw this story as well. And it was pretty amazing when you read the story. 16 fake, his next tweet after that, 16 fake news stories reporters have run since Trump won. It was a story done by The Federalist. And if you actually go to that article and look at The Federalist story, it's pretty interesting. I posted it on Facebook a couple of days ago, so you should friend me on Facebook and you will see the story.
Huh.
So there you go. All right. Obviously, this is the next tweet, and this he tweeted out before the decision came down from the circuit court. This is what he said: big increase in traffic into our country. Yeah, it is starting to sound like Arnold. Man, dang, don't laugh at me in there. All right. Big increase into traffic into our country from the certain areas, while our people are far more vulnerable as we wait for what should be easy D. I'm guessing it's a decision.
Yeah.
He just put easy D. All right. Next one. He says, thank you, Brian Krzanich. Krzanich. How do you say that?
I don't know. Who is he?
CEO of Intel.
Okay.
He said a great investment, $7 billion in America, innovation and jobs. Make America great again. Believe me. Okay, then he posted after that. He said, immigration ban is one of Trump's most popular orders so far. So he posted up a graphic from a story that pointed out that that immigration ban is actually pretty popular among some people. So there you go.
Getting back to that previous tweet, by the way, if you oppose what Trump stands for and what he's doing, don't take one of those new jobs. See how that works out for you.
This is a good point, I guess. Yeah. All right. He's posting a lot of stories. He's become a newsman, apparently. I don't know what the next one's. Another story he posted. He said, by the way, I don't look at these before I do this. It makes the segment a lot more interesting. He basically just puts headlines as he posts a story. It's very interesting to me now. I don't remember him doing this much before. He posted a story: majority and leading EU nations support Trump-style travel ban. Poll of more than 10,000 people in 10 countries. I remember that story, that a lot of people in Europe actually support the type, because they're the ones dealing with this a lot more than we have. And they actually support the ban over there, which is, we always hear that Europe hates Trump and Europe hates America, and maybe it's not so true. It's very interesting. All right, he posted another story here. Trump administration seen as more truthful than news media.
Yeah, that's a big one.
What is this story? Now I have to click on the story here. It's from The Hill.
Yeah, they did an interview, a poll on whether you trust what Trump is saying more or the news media in general, and Trump came out ahead.
Wow.
Yeah.
53% calling it untruthful, the news media, while the administration is Okay, so the administration is considered truthful by 49% of registered voters and untruthful by 48%. There you go. We're just completely divided down the middle.
Mm-hmm.
But the news media is less trusted than that, 53% calling it untruthful and 39% calling it honest. Huh. That is very interesting. I apparently I have to go to Trump for story ideas now. I have to go to his Twitter account for story ideas for the show. Okay. All right, next tweet. Congratulations to our new Attorney General, Senator Sessions. Gosh, now I really am starting to sound like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Now you've got it in my head. Oh, jeez. I thought I had it. Believe me, make America great again. All right. Tom Benson's laughing at me in there. All right, next one. Oh, this is the one that got all the controversy. Senator Richard Blumenthal, who never fought in Vietnam, when he said for years he had, major lie, now misrepresents what Gorsuch told him, ? So, Chris Cuomo, in his interview with Senator Blumenthal, never asked him about his long-term lie about his brave service in Vietnam. Fake news. Even though it turns out that it's true. Gorsuch, from even Senator Ben Sass said it, others said it. Gorsuch was a little critical of Trump's comment on the judge. So there we go. Okay, next one. Senator McCain should not be talking about the success or failure of a mission to the media. Only emboldens the enemy. He's been losing so long, he doesn't know how to win anymore. Just like at the mess our country is in, bogged down in conflict all over the place. Our hero, Ryan, died on a winning mission, according to General Mattis. Not a failure. Time for the U.S. to get smart and start winning again.
That's a long tweet.
Yeah,
Holy
it was
cow.
I know, it was like 3 tweets in one.
Oh, okay.
He's just getting lots of long tweets there, but he's basically criticizing McCain for criticizing the mission. He says McCain shouldn't criticize missions. Whatever, it's just politics. Whatever.
Yeah,
I don't really care that much about that. Another one, he tweeted out that you can join the swearing-in ceremony of Jeff Sessions. Obviously, that already happened. This is the big tweet that came out right after the ruling. He said, "See you in court. The security of our nation is at stake."
I'll be back.
Stop it. Jerk. All right. Now I can't do it anymore. Fine, I'll do it in my own boring voice. Next one. Lawfare. Lawfare? I don't know. He says lawfare. Remarkably, in the entire opinion, the panel did not bother even to cite the statute, a disgraceful decision. That's what Trump says. And the latest tweet on the Trump Twitter update. The failing New York Times does major fake news China story saying Mr. How do you say it? XI? How do they usually say that? Z?
Yeah.
I really should know that. Does major fake news story on China story saying he has not spoken to Mr. Trump since November 14th. We spoke at length yesterday. Fake news. He's going to be... I just love how he's... I do love how he's, tweeting out news stories, though. I think that's very... Oh, there's one that just came in like an hour ago. I almost missed it.
All right.
Heading to Joint Base Andrews on Marine One with Prime Minister Shinzo earlier today, and he posted a picture of it.
Yeah, they're already down there in Florida. Yeah, down here, I guess, in Florida.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. He looks very happy.
They're going to play golf while the attorneys work on their appeal to the Ninth Supreme Court. Somebody's got to keep the shop open.
Yes, of course, of course. All right, and that is the Beyond Reason Trump Twitter update.
I'm a tweet with a bird in a deodorant cage. Tweet is my name, but I don't know my age. I don't have to worry, and that is that. I'm safe in here from that old putty cat.
Making Twitter great again. Dang it, it does sound like Arnold. I can't believe I can't get it now. I thought I had it. Oh, okay, it is Beyond Reason. It is Beyond Reason. That made Yaffee laughy. I thank you all for joining me. It has been a big jam-packed edition of Beyond Reason. We went over a lot of different stuff. If you missed any of the show, make sure to check out the podcast. I will post it on my Facebook page. I'll post it on Twitter. You can follow me on Twitter at Beyond Reason R. You can go to BeyondReasonRadio.com, download the Beyond Reason Radio app, like us on Facebook at Beyond Reason Radio. Anywhere podcasts are available, you can catch the podcast on your TuneIn Radio app as well and your iHeartRadio app. pretty much anywhere podcasts are available. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. The weather is supposed to be really good. A lot better than what it is up north right now. So it's supposed to be really good this weekend. Have a good weekend, and I will catch you guys next time.
I look inside.